to What the Fuck Sutter number 20. It's we just aired episode 2, Booster. Did very well. You know, it took a little dip as it usually does after the premiere, but sort of in within the parameters of how we always dip, which means we've basically retained some of the bump we got coming into season 4, which is really awesome, and everyone is very happy with the turnout for the show, as am I. You know, it's really important to just note that you know, in a period of time with TV where shows continuously lose audiences over seasons, that really the dedication of and the enthusiasm of SOA fans continue to bring them to the TV for destination viewing, which is you know, which is becoming obviously a more rare thing these days as we slide into the content-driven digital age. So I watch these videos and I'm constantly touching myself and scratching. I look like a fucking junkie. It's just camera anxiety. And you know, and I'm a junkie. Yeah, so we're all very excited. What else? Anything back on Twitter, back on Facebook, still blogging. Coming into finishing up breaking the finale, about halfway through my rewrite of my passive episode 12, filming episode 11, and we're coming in here into the home stretch, so excited, very excited about that. Here's our question for this week. Comes from Matthew. Where are you from, Matthew? Matthew doesn't say. Hey, are we ever going to find out who killed Luann? There have been a couple of scenes since Luann's death where Jax and/or Clay visit Otto in prison and no one brings it up. Doesn't Otto care about who killed her? Thanks for great entertainment, Matthew Highland. I think, yeah, I think this season we will deal with the whole Luann issue as Otto gets sort of pulled into this bigger story arc. The whole Luann of it will play out, and we will actually find out the fate of Luann this season. And I don't want to spoil any more than that, but I think it'll be satisfying for that story point to be kind of out there dangling for a couple of seasons. So we will address. I don't necessarily know we tie it up into a neat package, but we will definitely address that issue this season. And much to my chagrin, we will do it through fucking Otto scenes. I love the fact that this email address now is really it's really not about questions anymore. It's people sending me pictures of cakes. And I'm not sure why. Let's see. Wow, this is a really complicated question. This is question number 21. Apparently Derek Fox has sent 20 other questions. I'm Derek Fox from Edgerton, Wisconsin. Been the biggest fan since the pilot episode. Haven't missed one live showing yet. Thank you, Derek. Love what you and the crew and the cast do. Show is badass and awesome. Keep it up. My question is, how do these sub-relationships within the club and their goals, for example, Jax and Opie wanting to unmake Clay after Opie finds out about Donna, Clay and Gemma with the mystery of JT always there and wanting to nail Jax down when he takes over as Prez, or not anymore after season 4 premiere, ha ha ha, along with all the other relationships the club and members are in. how and when do these relationships start to unfold and become major story arcs for the seasons? Because I would guess at some point they would have to. And how do other members in the club react? Do they ultimately pick sides, and are they unknowing of what's going on? I love all the small and important details that you drop into storylines, and a lot of time that stuff goes unnoticed. Keep up the good work. Can't wait for the next episode. And love to hear you back on WTFSutter. Your #1 fan. Thank you, Derek. Appreciate that, and I appreciate the attention to detail that you notice. Yeah, for me, you know, one of my biggest challenges, if not my biggest challenge in writing the show, is servicing, you know, all my great cast members with story, and obviously it's Jax's journey, and Clay and Gemma, you know, on the left and the right of him in that journey, and Tara as well. And it's always a challenge how to find story that reveals something about our secondary characters and yet somehow continue to move the bigger arc forward. What I've discovered is that having tangential stories that just tell perhaps a piece of history about Tig or about Bobby, as interesting as they are, because I only have 42 minutes of screen time, I find that they often either go away at a script level or get cut down to almost nothing in post. So what I've learned is that if I can create a story for our secondary characters that somehow, at the very least, either moves the bigger story forward in the narrative or in some way informs or impacts the major story in an emotional way, that it's just much easier for that story to sort of stay intact and become, you know, part of moving the episode forward. We very rarely have time for, kind of like we did on The Shield, we would have sort of tangential B or C stories that sort of had a life of their own sometimes, and I just don't have the screen time to do it on Sun. So like we have a story this season that involves Tig that, you know, is in its essence a separate story, but it dovetails into the bigger arc in that episode emotionally, and so at the very least thematically it's moving the episode forward, and that's sort of what I've learned how to do with Juice as well. Juice has his own little tangential arc for this season, but again, it's used to sort of feed the bigger narrative for the season. So that's ultimately what I try to do. In terms of your relationships within the club and all those secrets and stuff, you know, again, they will all sort of play out over time and continue to feed the mythology and the bigger arcs of the show. You know, quite often, and I don't think this is a bad thing, is that, you know, I will have something play out in an episode that'll be very interesting and organic to that episode, and help move the characters or the relationship along emotionally. But in terms of story, sometimes, you know, that'll just sort of, you know, be left where it is, and sometimes I'll pick it up and continue it later on if I can use it, sort of like what I'm doing with the Luann story this season. But a lot of times I won't. You know, a lot of times it's sort of like life. Those things happen and they're there and they're part of the history of that relationship, and you know, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, and sometimes that gets accessed through other things that bring that back around, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just part of the history of those two people and that relationship. So you know, there are quite, you know, there's a lot of those examples in this show. But really good, thoughtful questions. Thank you, and please keep the questions coming. You know, I kind of pick them randomly, as you can tell. I don't really screen questions, and I pick ones that I've gotten, you know, months ago, and then I pick ones that I've gotten in the last week. I try to mix it up. So please keep sending your questions in, and there's a good chance I'll get to them, and keep watching, and I'll keep checking in. Thanks.